Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome our guests. Viju, and your daughter, your name is?
Simran.
Simran, and your husband? Sam. All right, very good. Welcome. Auspicious way to begin the new year. Hearing and chanting about Krishna, which is what we'll be discussing today, in part. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupagadamayam Tadatti Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Manchakapachubhasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Presho Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya Bhagavad Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Today, Thursday, January 1st, 2026. Happy New Year to everyone. Hari Hari Bol. And we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 31, the final chapter of the fourth canto, Narada instructs the Prachetas. This is text number 23. We did 22 yesterday. At least that's what was up on the YouTube page.
We did 21.
Oh. All right. Well, we're going to do 23 today. Because that's what I prepared for. Maitreya Uvacha. Iti prachetaso rajan. Anyascha bhagavat kataha. Shrabayitva brahmalokam. Yaya swayam bhuvo muni. Iti prachetaso rajan. Anyascha bhagavat kataha. Shravayat va brahmalokam. Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi. Iti prachetaso rajan. Anyascha bhagavat kataha. Shravayitva brahmalokam. Yaya swayam bhuvo munihi. Maitreya Uvacha.
Iti prachetaso rajan.
Anyascha bhagavat kataha. Shravayitva brahmalokam. Yaya swayam bhuvo muni.
Iti prachetaso rajan.
Iti prachetaso rajan.
Anyascha bhagavat kataha.
Anyascha bhagavat kataha.
Shravayitva brahmalokam.
Shravayitva brahmalokam.
Yaya swayam bhuvo muni.
Yaya swayam bhuvo muni. Iti prachetaso rajan. Anyascha bhagavat kataha. Shravayitva brahmalokam. Yaya swayam bhuvo muni. Maitreya Uvacha. Iti prachetaso rajan. Anyascha bhagavat kataha. Shravayitva brahmalokam. Yaya swayam bhuvo muni. All right, we'll do the word for word. And it probably my mistake that I advanced it by one verse accidentally.
That was an easier verse.
The synonyms: Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said. Iti. Thus. Prachetasaha. The Prachetas. Rajan. O king. Anyaha. Others. Cha. Also. Bhagavat Katha. Topics about the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shravayitva. After instructing. Brahmalokam. To Brahmaloka. Yayao. Went back. Swayam Bhuvaha, the son of Lord Brahma. Munihi, the great sage. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear King Vidura, Sri Narad Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahma Loka. Please repeat. The great sage Maitreya continued. My dear King Vidura, Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. This is a very brief purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. One has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. The Prachetas got this opportunity from the great sage Narada, who told them of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His devotees. Maitreya uvacha iti pracheta sorad anyas sa bhagavat kataha sravayitva brahmalokam yal swayam bhuvo munihi. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear King Vidura, Sri Narad Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. Mukum karoti bachalam angam lagayate girim jat kripa tamaham bande vigurum dinatarinam paramananda madhavam. So this is very interesting, speaking about the relationships with the Lord, or between the Lord and His devotees. It's a very interesting subject matter, and it is more explicitly and scientifically explicated in various places in Srila Prabhupada's books, especially in the Nectar of Devotion. And also there's that very nice discussion in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is inquiring from Ramananda Roy about the truth. What is the truth? And Ramananda Roy starts off giving very superficial and basic answers. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, no, that is superficial, that is external. There must be more, go on. So he progresses from the duties of Varnashram Dharma and the various understandings we find in the Sri Bhagavad Gita of Lord Krishna. And then he finally comes to the rasas, or the relationships between the Lord and His devotees. And so he starts off, the 5 primary rasas, or relationships, are known as Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Shanta being neutrality, Dasya, servitude, Sakya, friendship, Vatsalya, parental love, and then culminating in Madhurya, which is the conjugal love that is most perfectly expressed by the gopis of Vrindavan, who, although ostensibly appearing as simple village cowherd girls, they are actually exhibiting the highest stages of love of God that is possible for anyone to achieve. So these are not ordinary cowherd girls. And his friends are not ordinary cowherd boys, but they're very exalted, elevated devotees who are exhibiting the highest possible limit of Krishna prema, or love of God, which, according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, prema pumarto mahan, the ultimate goal of life is to obtain love of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada has remarked in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was written in the early 1970s, but after he'd already published many volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, and of course the Gita and the Nectar of Devotion and the Krishna book. And during that time in our movement, there was an explosion of book distribution taking place, especially in America, but in other places also, South America, in Europe, Australia, and just beginning in India at that time. But the books were going out like anything. Srila Prabhupada famously said that just like during the wartime, the bombs are dropping like anything from the sky, referring to, of course, World War II, especially how England was bombed by Germany, but also India was bombed by Japan. And Srila Prabhupada was living in Calcutta during that time, and the Japanese were bombing Calcutta. And there was one incident where his wife said to him, "You know, the bombs are dropping, we should go to the bomb shelter." And it was just at that time, it was time for prasadam in the house. And so Srila Prabhupada said, "Yes, but let me take prasadam first, and then we will go to the bomb shelter." And he said, if Krishna comes in the form of a bomb and blows us up, then that is also Krishna's mercy. But emphasizing the importance of taking prasadam. So that is very nice. Leela of Srila Prabhupada. He had faith in Krishna. If Krishna is coming in the form of a bomb, all right, let him come. But just now we are engaging in important service to Krishna. We are taking prasadam. Just see. So all these relationships are put forth or given by Sri Ramananda Roy to Lord Chaitanya in their amazing discussion. And then, so the different rasas, the 5 primary rasas that we've delineated here, they are successive rasas. So the lowest of the rasas, you could say lowest, but none of them are low. But the beginning of the rasas is the Shanta ras, the stage of neutrality. And then when one progresses, one may come to the next level, which is dasya, servitude. So whatever rasa or taste is there in Shanta is also there in dasya, but then dasya has more features. Who's a prime example of dasya? Who knows? Hanuman in his service to Lord Ramachandra. That is dasya ras. He's the servant. We've seen the deities of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. Hanuman is down on his knees offering pranams. He's the servant of the Lord, and he rendered some very great service, some amazing, powerful service. So next up from the dasya is sakya, which is friendship. This is the rasa exhibited by the cowherd boys, the Gopalas of Sri Vrindavan Dham. So the flavors or the exchange of love, rasa means exchange of love or flavors. So those exchanges of love between the devotee and the Lord, when the devotee is in the sakya ras, it contains all the flavors of the shanta ras and the dasya ras. But there's more. And the big difference between dasya, servitude, and sakya, friendship, is that the devotees in Sakya, like the cowherd boys, they are no longer constrained by awe and reverence to the Lord, but they feel themselves equal. Krishna is my friend. Sometimes they wrestle with him. Sometimes they form parties and they have a competition, and the losers of the competition have to carry the winners on their backs. This is the way the cowherd boys operate there in Sri Vrindavan. They have competitions and they wrestle and do different things. So sometimes the cowherd boy is defeating Krishna in some competition. So he's not thinking in terms of awe and reverence. And we notice in the prayers of the Sri Damodarastakam, where it is explained that the Lord is not very much interested in awe and reverence. It doesn't attract him. So the author Satyavraja Muni of the Damodarastakam has said that that devotion that is enfeebled by awe and reverence does not very much attract the love. But the pure love of the devotees in Vrindavan, beginning with Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, that is very attractive to the Lord. Because those feelings of love for God are not constrained by awe and reverence. Oh God, you are so great, and I am so tiny and insignificant. Of course, a devotee is always humble, but in the higher rasas, there is a sense of equality with the Lord. Krishna, let me defeat you. Let me wrestle with you. Sometimes the cowherd boys will steal Krishna's lunch, and they'll pass it around, they'll throw it around, and say, give me my lunch back. So these pastimes they contain some familiarity, but not the type of, as we're used to in the mature world, familiarity breeds contempt. Not like that. But it is the familiarity of pure love. And then, so furthermore, in the parental ras, there's this extraordinary feature where one is in a superior position. Mother Yashoda, she has a parental affection for Krishna. Krishna, he is my child, he's my baby. I have to feed him. If he doesn't eat, he will die. She thinks like this. And she's always trying to protect him by chanting various mantras and hitting him with the whisk of a cow tail whisk, considered to be very auspicious. And so she's chanting and protecting Krishna, and she thinks that she's responsible for maintaining and protecting Krishna. Although he's a god, and he's protecting and maintaining everyone, still, you could say, colored by that love, her affection perceives him in that way as her son. And it is also said by Srila Prabhupada that in the material world, the closest thing that we see to love of God is the love of parent for the child. Because the parent is always concerned with love for the child under all circumstances, no matter what the child does. The child may be a great rascal, a great criminal. Still, the mother loves the child. Or sometimes maybe not. There's one story about, there was one young boy, and his mother would never chastise him or discipline him. And so he got away with everything. Then he grew up to become a great criminal. And finally he was taken before the high court judge to be sentenced for his criminal activities. And just before he was taken away, his mother went to see him. And what did he do? He bit her on the ear, saying, you should have chastised me, you should have trained me, you should have disciplined me. And then I became a great criminal and a rascal. You should have stopped me from the very beginning.
Wasn't it his aunt?
Well, could have been, but, I'm telling the story, okay. So, bit her on the ear. It's like Mike Tyson. So, there's a special flavor in that relationship of parental ras. Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj with Krishna as their son. And they're always thinking of him, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhavamad bhakto. Always think of me, become my devotee. So they're thinking like that. Even so much so that when they were getting ready in Vrindavan to perform the Indra Puja, the Indra sacrifice, Krishna began talking to Nanda Maharaj and said, what is this sacrifice? And why are you doing it? And Nanda Maharaj explained to him that this is a traditional sacrifice that we perform, that our family has performed for generations to appease Lord Indra, because we are in the agricultural business. We grow grains, we grow food, we have cows, and we depend upon the rains coming from the sky, which are supplied by the demigod Indra. Therefore, we offer sacrifice to Indra to appease him, so that he will continue to supply us with the proper rains nicely, so our community can prosper. And this is actually explained in the Bhagavad Gita, that in the 4th chapter, Yagyar Tat Karma Nam Yatra, 3rd chapter, Lokoyam Karma Bandhanaha, Tadaham Karma Kontaya, Mukta Sangha Samachara, that work as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, the work or the karma that we perform in this world, it leads to bondage. And that is inauspicious. And that bondage leads us to trying to enjoy the fruits of our work in this world, in this life. And then we are again forced to come back in another body and work again, trying to enjoy the fruits. So, but when one performs sacrifice for Vishnu, then one becomes free from the karma of living in this world, whether it be good or bad. But in the context of the modern age, most of the karma that people are accruing, even though they don't know it, is very inauspicious. For example, killing animals, maintaining slaughterhouses to kill animals for the sake of satisfying the tongue. This is extremely sinful activity. Although normal people think, what the heck are you talking about? Man, I just go get my burger. It's, it's all cool.
You need the protein.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's plenty of protein without killing animals.
I know. We always see this.
Actually, the combination of rice and dal, the synergistic combination, is very high protein source. And especially like urd dal, extremely high in protein. What to speak of chickpeas and so many other non-animal foods. But this mass killing, organized, conspiratorial killing of animals to eat, it is very sinful. And therefore, because of it is going on like that, formerly there was not mass slaughter of animals. It would just take place on an individual farm, and it would be for the family. And then along came Texas and the Cowboys, not the football team, but the organized massive transportation, raising and transporting cows to places like Omaha, Nebraska, and Chicago, where they had big slaughterhouses. And this is extremely sinful and extremely inauspicious. And what happens, it causes chaos on the planet Earth. And thus there is no peace and happiness amongst human society, which is responsible for these nefarious activities. I think it was Sir Paul McCartney said that if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would go vegetarian, if you could see. It just so happens that I spent my teenage years in Fort Worth, Texas, which is nicknamed Cowtown. And there's a very big slaughterhouse on the north side of Fort Worth. And man, you can smell that place for miles. And then coincidentally, when I was quite young, from ages like 2 through 6, we lived in Omaha, Nebraska, where they also had very big slaughterhouses and big train yards for transporting the cattle to the slaughterhouses. All very hellish, all very stinky. You want to get as far away from that as you can. But extremely sinful, and thus the chaos that we see in the world today. There's a lot of chaos in the world, a lot of crazy things going on. Wars, death, starvation, poverty, and even in this country, we see dilapidated social conditions and deteriorating more and more and more social conditions. People on the street, there's so many people on the street who have no clue as to the purpose of life and are practically living this hard scrabble existence, almost like animals, struggling to survive and completely bewildered by the lower modes of material nature. The human society should not be organized like that. That is disorganization. That is chaos. And it stems from these sinful activities. Especially, Srila Prabhupada has taught us that the killing of animals is extremely sinful and extremely inauspicious. Yet, people go on their merry way. What is the saying? Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. And then what happens when you die? You go on to another body, and then you have to suffer the resultant karma of the sinful activities you performed in this life. So that philosophy of eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die, doesn't take into account what happens after you die. Because people do not know, oh, I am the eternal spirit, and I'm in this temporary body now, and what I do in this life, how I conduct my activities, it dramatically affects what will be my next life. Or as our Judeo-Christian brothers say, as you sow, so shall you reap. So the seeds you plant by your activities, they are, the fruit of those activities is born in the next life. And this people do not know. And people do not know what is the real goal of human life? What is in our best interest? And therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says in the Bhagavatam, Nataividhu swarta gatim hi vishnum, that people do not know what is in their best self-interest. Swarta gatim hi vishnum, they do not know that to worship the Lord, that is in their best interest. That is the prime necessity of human life, is to worship the Supreme Lord, offer sacrifice to Him, become His devotee. But instead, durashe ye bahirarti maninaha. Maninaha, they think that which is bahir, external, is bahirarti manina. That's the real wealth. That's the real benefit. That which is external. Or in other words, enjoying the senses. Trying to be happy by satisfying the senses and satisfying this body. In complete forgetfulness of our real identity as a spiritual being. Yata adandhaya rupaniya manas. Just as a blind man is led by blind men are led by another blind man. So what happens when the blind man is leading the group of blind men? They fall into the ditch. They're misled because the leader is blind. So the leaders in human society, they are completely blind as to their real identities and to the real self-interest of human beings. So they're not really leaders at all. They're misleaders. They're all fools and rascals. Yata anandaya upaniya manas te pisha trantram ududamni badaha. And thus they are bound up by the ropes of material nature, the gunas, especially passion and ignorance. And it is a very lamentable situation. And this situation of this state of living in complete illusion and ignorance is the state of human society all over the world. Therefore, there is a great necessity to educate people in Krishna consciousness, which is to understand the real truth of our identity and the real mission of this human form of life. Because if you don't fulfill properly the mission of the human form of life, then your next birth is not a human birth. Down you go, back into the species of life. One can become an animal, a cat, a dog. If one is really covered over, one can become a tree. There are so many varieties of life, so many species of life, including microbes and insects. Srila Prabhupada said about, in the first temple in New York City at 26 2nd Avenue, the landlord, I think his name was Mr. Chuti, he owned that building, and it was kind of a rundown building and had a lot of problems, and he was always having to fix everything, kind of like what we have here. These old buildings always require so much maintenance and so much anxiety. And he said that this Mr. Chuti, he was so attached to this building, it was his only thing in life. He owned this building at 2nd Avenue in New York City, and he got some rents from the devotees, and Prabhupada had an apartment in the building in the back, which is part of that building. And Prabhupada said that he is so attached to this building, he knows nothing else. In his next life, he'll take birth as a cockroach in this building. Wow. Wow. And Srila Prabhupada is a liberated soul who can see past, present, and future. So we have to modulate our activities and conduct our lives in such a way that we don't take birth as a... Imagine if you don't become Krishna conscious, you could take birth as a cockroach or a mouse in this temple. Of course, that mouse is getting very nice prasadam. Actually, by taking that prasadam, that mouse will be elevated to the human form of life. Maybe in his next life will be the pujari, worshiping the deity. Or perhaps he'll be the maintenance man, which we so direly need, a good maintenance man here. He'll become the maintenance man, and he'll be catching the mice, his brethren. So these things are going on. So that is the idea of a relationship. That is the first thing mentioned in this verse and purport. The relationship of the Lord and his devotees. Now the first thing Prabhupada says in the purport is that one must hear about Krishna Katha, the activities of Krishna, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, the chanting of the names of Krishna, from pure devotees. So the Prachetas, they have heard this Krishna Katha from Sri Narada Muni, and they have greatly benefited. Now in the third canto, 25th chapter, 25th verse of the Bhagavatam, there's very one important verse which illustrates this philosophical point and explicates the glories of hearing and chanting Krishna Katha. And that verse is Satam prashangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarana rasayana kataha Yajoshanarash bhavavarka vartmani Sadharatir bhaktir anukramishati. And Srila Prabhupada's translation. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation. And thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. So hearing about Krishna from a pure devotee, it is Yat Karana Rasayana Kata. Hrit Karana. Hrit means the heart, and Karna means the ear. So that subject matter, it enters into the ear, and it is very pleasing to the jiva, to the spirit soul, to hear Krishna Katha. And not only is it pleasing to the ear, but it has a very amazing effect on the heart, which is where the soul resides, within the heart. So one becomes happy to hear Krishna Katha, especially the poetry of the Bhagavatam is very sweet and very pleasing to hear. And then the heart becomes enlivened, and the inauspicious things that lie within the heart, they are broken up, they are dissipated, they're cleared away by this cultivation of Krishna consciousness in Satam Prashangam. Satam means the devotees, and Prashanga means association. Satam Prashangam. Shangam means association, like Sadhu Sangha, association of devotees, but Prashangam, that Sanskrit prefix, pra is an intensifier. So not just Sangam, but Prashangam. Very powerful, intense association with devotees. And thus one is pleased to hear this Krishna Katha, and then one's heart is softened, and the effects of the inauspicious things in the heart, which are lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, and envy, are dissipated. Envy is very prominent in the world. It is very prominent. Someone sees someone else and he thinks, yeah, I don't like him. Just look at him. He's such a rascal. He has a better car than me. He's better looking than me. He dresses better than me. But I know he's really actually a devil. And therefore I hate him. And then someone else, oh, he has a different color skin. Oh, I hate him. Just look at him. He's such a dog. So that envy of other living entities, it is a very basic human drive. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Icha dvesha samudtvena dvandva mohina bharata. That the living entities take birth in bodies in this material world, Icha dvesha, overcome by the dualities of Icha, desire, I want to enjoy, I want to be God, I want to be the happiest of anybody, and if I can step on someone else's head to become more happy, yes. And then dvesha, that hatred or that envy of other living entities. We can think of one current politician prominent in the modern society who exhibits this hatred of others. He hates the immigrants. He hates people who don't have money. He doesn't want the government to give any money to people who don't have any. He wants to take it away and give it to his friends and appoint them all to high positions. That kind of envy we see, it's very ugly. And sometimes it comes out in normal dealings that someone is very envious. And an envious person will do their damnedest to inconvenience the person they're envious of. Like someone may be a government official, say, a bureaucrat in an office. We experienced this in our community in Alachua, Florida, very small town, and the city would buy the utilities from the big utility companies in the nearby city, and then they would resell it to the residents at a higher price. And they had these two ladies that worked in the utility office, and they were full of envy, and they would not allow you to turn on the utilities in the house unless you paid a high deposit, even if you had a previous record of paying with them. We had experience of one devotee that had an account with the utilities company. They were late 2 days for one payment, like out of 3 or 4 years, they were late like one time. Oh no, Oh no, you were late one time, 2 days late in paying the utility bill. So you have to put a big deposit. Well, they didn't have to do that. They just did it out of envy. This is famous that, government bureaucrats, you give someone a little power, they say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the bigger the official, the more they become corrupt and carried away with their sense of control and power. And this can even be like the clerk in the store. We even experienced this with the staff of one store who became very envious, although we were giving them good business, because they did not want to make any extra little endeavor to serve the customer. A good lesson to be learned in Govindus. Always serve the customer nicely. Serving them to take prasadam. So, anyway, this envy is a very prominent feature in the conditioned soul. But by cultivation of Krishna Bhakti, that envy that is lying within the heart due to the influence of the modes of nature, it becomes cleared away, becomes cleansed. And so it is said that in Vrindavan, even the fierce animals in the jungle, they get along nicely. Due to the effect of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada explains how the saintly persons living in the forest in their hermitages, they would put out a little bowl of milk, and the tigers would come and drink the milk. And the tigers would not come and maul the sages and eat them, but they would be satisfied to take a little milk given by the sadhus. But normally a tiger is a very fierce animal and will attack and kill a person on sight if it can get away with it, if there's no one else around. So anyway, that envy that's lying within the heart, it becomes dissipated by cultivation of hearing and chanting about Krishna. There's a very elaborate description in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam about how by hearing and chanting Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanad Vidyantaksto Hibadrani Vidunoti Suhrit Satam. And then the verse that we always chant before speaking on Bhagavatam, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. Bhadra means auspicious. Abhadra means inauspicious. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya. By hearing and chanting about Krishna and Krishna Katha, then Nasta Prayeshu, Nashta, destroyed. All the inauspicious, the abhadra, the inauspicious things that are within the heart, they become destroyed. And then one makes progress on the path of spiritual advancement. And in this verse we're speaking about from the 3rd canto, and thereafter he becomes freed. He's freed from attachment to sense gratification, freed from lust, anger, greed, envy, madness, and illusion. And his attraction, which is called rati, his attraction for Krishna and simultaneous detachment for attraction for sense gratification or the allurements of the material energy of Maya, they become dispelled, nasta prayeshu, and his attraction for Krishna becomes fixed. One becomes fixed up. Therefore, we hear this expression that for devotees it's important to become fixed up in Krishna consciousness. It is one of the stages in the development of bhakti. Adau shadha, tatsadu sangata bhajana kriya, anarta nivritti shat, and nishta. It's called nishta. Nishta and ruchi. So after anarta nivritti, eliminating the unwanted things from the heart, one becomes nishta. Nishta means fixed up. So someone who is nishta, fixed up in Krishna consciousness. Oh, my dear sir, would you like a cigarette? No, thank you. I am interested only in Krishna. I'm not interested in that paltry sense gratification. Well, how about a free sample of illicit sex, which everyone in the world is hankering after and endeavoring for? No, sir, I'm not interested. Like Haridas Thakur, the prostitute came to allure him, and he was chanting 192 rounds every day, 3 lakhs of japa. So he told her that, she said, "You're so young, so handsome. You're such a great saintly person. I wish to have union with you." And he said, "Just now, actually, I am chanting my rounds. But as soon as I finish my chanting, then surely I will satisfy your desires." So she hung around while he's chanting. Meanwhile, he never finished his chanting. He chanted all night, and she waited all night for him, and he was still chanting. And then he apologized. "I'm sorry, I could not fulfill your desires. I'm still chanting my rounds. Perhaps if you come back tomorrow." So she did. She came back. Of course, she was given a mission by Ramachandra Khan to make Haridas fall down and thus ruin his reputation. That was her purpose. She had been hired, kind of a Matahari kind of a thing. So she comes back the next day, and he's chanting. "Oh, you have returned," he said. "Just sit down here and wait a little while longer while I finish my chanting." And so he continued his chanting, and she was exhibiting various feminine poses, which is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that would bewilder even the mind of Lord Brahma, but to speak of any ordinary person. Yet Haridas Thakur was fixed. He continued his chanting. And so she was sitting there, getting his association, hearing him chant, and then she began to chant along, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." We experienced this, something like this. We were chanting at the National Mall in front of the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. For years, we used to go out and chant with a sound system. And then they developed through a court case this thing where they had all these vendors coming out. They had T-shirts, "No taxation without representation." And it was all about statehood and freedom of speech. But they're really just vendors. And there were a lot of Korean vendors there. And they would sell these fake Oakley sunglasses. And because their English wasn't so great, they were saying, "Ugly, ugly, ugly." It sounded like ugly, ugly, ugly. Selling the fake Oakley sunglasses. And there was one vendor that had a table across from us. And we're blasting the kirtan all day long. And after a few days, this young Korean woman, must have been in her 20s, we look over and we see her mouth moving. She was chanting the Maha Mantra. We had this sign on our table, the Maha Mantra, big Maha Mantra sign with the holy names. And we're saying, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." And we look over, she's going, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." She was chanting all day long. She was sitting there at her T-shirt booth, wasn't very busy, not many customers, and hearing the holy name. And by that constant hearing, just like the prostitute who came to, allure Haridas Thakur, she started chanting, "Hare, Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna." And then, so the day came to an end. He was still chanting, so she came back one more time. And then this time she said, he broke out, "I'm sorry. I was sent by Ramachandra Khan to make you fall down. But I see that you are fixed in the chanting. Please initiate me into the chanting of the holy name. I want to become a devotee." And Haridas Thakur said to her, "Yes, I know all about Ramachandra Khan and his nefarious activities, and I would have left here long ago. But since you came, I was staying here just for your benefit, so that you could hear the holy name and that you would become a devotee. And now that is successful." And he told her, "Just stay here, give away all your possessions that you have accumulated by virtue of your profession. Just stay here." And he had a Tulsi plant there. "Just worship Srimati Tulsi Devi and chant the holy name." And then everyone in the village became astonished at the conversion of this prostitute by Srila Haridas Thakur. The power of associating and hearing and chanting in the association of pure devotees. And I'll read a little bit from this purport and then we'll stop. Prabhupada says in the purport that the process of advancing in Krishna consciousness and devotional service is described here. The first point is that one must seek the association of persons who are Krishna conscious and who engage in devotional service. Without such association, one cannot make advancement. Simply by theoretical knowledge or study, one cannot make any appreciable advancement. One must give up the association of materialistic persons. Boy, that's hard to do if you live in the real world. And seek the association of devotees. Because without the association of devotees, one cannot understand the activities of the Lord. And when Lord Chaitanya was asked, what is the behavior of a Vaishnava, one who is a devotee of the Lord? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he replied, Asat Sanga Tyag, E Vaishnavachar, Sri Shangi Eka Sadhu, Krishna Bhakta Ar. That E Vaishnav Achar, Achar means behavior. There's two things, Achar and Prachar. Achar means behavior, and Prachar means preaching Bhagavatam. So Vaishnav Achar, the behavior, and there's another type of Achar, which is pickle. You know, mango pickle. You have some Achar and mango pickle to go with this puri. So Asat Sangha Tyag. Asat Sangha, the association of non-devotees. Devotees are called Sat, like in this verse. Satam, Sat, Satam Prashangam, association with devotees. Asat Sangha Tyag, the behavior of a Vaishnava is that he does not keep the company of those who are not devotees. Asat Sangha Tyag. Tyag means to renounce or give up. E Vaishnavachar. That is the behavior of a devotee. And Prabhupada says, without such association, one cannot make advancement. Not just by studying. So we'll stop here. There's more. We could go on a whole other class just on the purport I started to read. And we'll ask any questions or comments. Yes.
So when you said you were talking about the eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow, we must die, it just made me think, well...
No, tomorrow we may die.
Tomorrow we may die, right.
As if you weren't going to die after all that sense gratification.
And so that just made me think, like, you know, so many times people think, oh, you're giving up so much, you know, to serve the Lord. But actually, that's what we get to do, too. We get to eat, drink, and be merry. But actually, we're truly merry because we understand our position, you know, and so we're not, you know, kind of pretending to be merry to sort of forget about the rest of life, you know. So, like
Kalakanta in Gainesville tells the college students there, the Krishna consciousness, we party too. Just our party begins, you know, hour and a half before sunrise, Mangal Archik. We're chanting and dancing. So you're partying, you're drinking and becoming sick and illusioned and covered over by the motor ignorance. We're partying too by chanting and dancing about Krishna, like that nice kirtan we just had with everyone chanting and dancing. It is very blissful and it is not expensive. Alcohol is very expensive. Drugs are expensive. So, and there's no bad side effects. All the effects are good. And the side effects are that one becomes liberated from all unhappy conditions of life, according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Evam prasana manaso, one becomes enlivened in the mind. All right, any other question, comment? Yes, Damodar.
I have a question about the cows of Vrindavan. Would they be considered to have the rasa of neutrality, or would it be the rasa of service? They're supplying milk, you know.
Yeah, but also it's a kind of a mix of Shanta and Dasya.
Okay.
They're servitude. They're serving Krishna.
But like
Krishna knows all their names, and they lick Krishna, so that's not Shanta. Licking Krishna's body,
right,
and then giving the milk.
Plants would be an example of,
Plants would be an
Neutrality.
example of neutrality.
right? Okay.
There's mixtures of the rasas. And Janeshwar, the last one.
Thank you. It's a very nice class. I'm just wondering, how can we know, or do we just know, or can we know what Ras we're in?
You can know eventually, but, don't put the cart before the horse. In other words, don't try to, they have these, Babajis that give you this, I forget what it's called, this initiation. They tell you your rasa in the spiritual world. The one devotee had been to these Babajis in Radhakund, and then he was at the temple, and he was like, Prabhu, what on earth are you doing? Oh, well, I've gotten Siddha Pranali from the Babajis in Radhakund, and it was revealed I'm a peacock in Vrindavan. I don't know how he was spreading his tail, but peacocks and other birds think like this. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. First, understand I'm not this body. And then gradually it will be revealed, but that is in the later, higher stages. Much later, much higher than the present, because we are very much conditioned by the modes of nature and attached to various gross and subtle types of sense gratification. So we cannot see the forest for the trees. But eventually that will be revealed to you. But not today, and not next week. And who knows when that will happen. All right, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.